Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking time out of your evening to discuss our capital project that we will have on the ballot in May. I'm just going to be talking to you for a brief amount of time, and then we'll be turning it over to Jacqueline McAllister, our business administrator, and Greg Cloku, our CSR project manager. Tonight, we're going to be discussing our proposed capital project. We'll be giving you an overview, talking about our recently completed building condition survey, talk about the immediate needs that survey brought to light, and long-range planning, and then maintaining a stable, predictable tax levy for our community. Overview of our project, our facilities committee with Board of Education members, our architect, myself, Jacqueline, and various stakeholders in our district guides our facilities planning. We have a comprehensive facilities plan that is guided by our needs and wants and our building condition survey. And then we like to plan projects to coincide with retiring debt. So as debt is retired, we have projects so it remains stable for our community, so there's no highs and lows in our tax levies. I'm going to turn it over to Greg, who performed our building condition survey and who brought the safety needs to the district's attention.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'll describe the building condition survey a little bit. So this is a state mandated assessment that we do every 5 years of all the district facilities. And we last did it in 2015, and the results of that survey were utilized in the capital project that we just completed. A lot of those priorities identified there become things that we address in the capital project. As this is done every 5 years, we just completed the last survey in 2020. So we just did it. It was uploaded to SED's website in March. And from that, we identified some areas of concern, of things that need to be addressed in the next 5 years. So typically, the building condition survey is structured to identify anything that's going to require any type of repair or replacement in the next 5 years. And we allocate monies and budget what we think that repair will cost. That is typically how a capital project is planned, that we identify items in the building condition survey, and then we plan to address those in the next 5 years. But there are many times when items come up that might be an immediate need, and we feel that we should address them quicker than waiting for the potential next large capital project. And these are things that, when we did the last building condition survey, which would have been 2014 and then filed in 2015, these are things that at that time, might not have looked as deteriorated as they are now. Things were 5 and 6 and 7 years younger at that time. So some of the immediate needs that we identified that we've included in this project and recommended get addressed relatively quickly here is the underground fuel tanks over at the bus garage, the diesel tanks and the gasoline tanks. Also one of the fuel oil tanks here at the elementary, or at the high school rather. The bus lifts over at the bus garage are deteriorating to a point where Department of Transportation has issued citations of just to indicate repairs need to be made. And obviously the pavilion that collapsed back in 2020 due to a windstorm. So over at the bus garage, a couple of the items there are relatively simple items, but they carry some pretty substantial budgets with them, is the underground fuel tanks. So we'd like to remove them, replace them with above ground tanks. We don't have any evidence or any reason for concern that the tanks are leaking or anything of that nature. It's really the mechanism at the top side of the tank where we fill and where we monitor the fuel levels. Those systems are deteriorating. So we want to get that addressed before we get to a point where we might have a leaking situation. So of course we would plan for any contaminated soil if we encountered it, but the intention is that we'll just pull these out and replace them with above ground tanks. Also at the bus garage, the oil water separator, kind of a similar situation, that unit that separates the oil from the water, the waste water that comes off the floor, and the bus wash area, that is deteriorating, and we'd like to get a bigger unit in there, replace that to ensure that it functions as a oil water separator. Also over at the bus garage, the fuel dispensing system, again, it's functional. It is getting up in years. It is a very simple mechanical system that doesn't offer some of the controls and the monitoring that the newer systems offer, as far as monitoring how much gas is going out to which vehicles it's going to. We can record and track all that for better efficiencies going forward. Also, the two lifts, as we've talked about many times here, your crew over there does a fantastic job. Many times working off one of the lifts being non-functional. There is the fluid that is within the lift is leaking. It's leaking into a containment center, so it's not getting anywhere, but it makes the lift potentially unsafe. And there has been some citation from the Department of Transportation on the condition of that lift and repairs that were needed in order to utilize it. So when we do that lift, we'll address the floors adjacent to it, and we'll put a nicer floor finish throughout the whole shop area, so it'll be more of a more cleaner space for these guys. Also at the bus garage, we have some deteriorated pavement, and you can see the photo there where, the roadway just over time, I believe that's 20, almost 25 years old over there, just having the heavy buses roll up and down it many times a day, starts to deteriorate. And once it starts to peel away like it is, it quickly deteriorates. So again, we want to get that addressed quickly. And there's the pavilion. That was kind of unexpected. That was a windstorm that knocked that pavilion down. So the intention here would be to replace it almost in kind, provide a similar covered, open-sided seating area, but add to that toilet facilities for men and women's toilet facilities. In addition to that, we would provide kind of a common space or a common closet where we'd have a sink. And if a group was to utilize the pavilion on the weekend, or an after school activity was held there, they would have a sink where they could clean up and get water. Again, it would be similarly sized to what is there currently. So over at the school complex, when we want to do work outside, we need to do work inside the building in order to generate building aid to do that work. There is some flooring and some toilet rooms that were not included in the last project. That project had a limited scope as well. Even though it was a substantial project, there were things that couldn't be completed and couldn't be included in that. So this is some flooring that 7 years ago was in much better condition. Now again, it just deteriorates over time, and we'd like to address that flooring in those two additional toilet rooms now.
Thank you, Greg. I'll talk a little bit about our funding sources for the project. The full project cost estimated by the architects and contractors is about $3.1 million, and that's what we're putting on the proposition. The district will utilize $100,000 in capital reserves, and we will have reimbursement from New York State in the form of building aid, which our building aid ratio is 78.7%. And that is based on the aidable portions of the project. As Greg mentioned, some of it we have to do inside in order to get some aid outside, and there's complicated formulas that go into that. But overall, 78.7% would get reimbursed, and we would use the balance of it would come from local share in our debt, which we don't anticipate being a large portion. And we do have retiring debt. We talk about that a lot. And that is to, as we have debt coming on, we want to make sure that we're also retiring debt so that there's this minimal impact to our taxpayers. And we keep a close eye on that through our debt service schedules, working with our fiscal advisors. So after utilization of reserves and state aid, we're estimating in 22-23 a budget impact of about $65,000 per year. And in the town of Galway, at a home assessed at $100,000, that equates to about $8.48. And these are based on this year's assessments, equalization rates, and apportionments. So as we get closer, we can estimate, but that's what we're looking at right now. And as we go into the future, Greg mentioned that we are always looking at what's next, because we do have debt falling off again in 2028. So we want to make sure that we look at that going forward. Those debt ratios also play into our tax cap, which I'll get to in a moment. But as we work with the facilities committee, also with looking at the building condition survey, we're not addressing all of the needs of the building condition survey. So in the future, things that we would like to talk about going down the road are, replacement of items at the bus garage, renovations of some classrooms and maintenance facilities in the junior senior high school, replacement of the district's well system, and replacement of the track. So those are why we're not using the capital reserve funds fully right now. We're looking ahead toward the future to see what we would need to use them for in the future as well. And with that, look at maintaining a stable and predictable tax levy. To do that, we do look over at our retiring debt. We have about $375,000 of retiring debt over the next 4 years. And that will play into the tax levy impact as well. We do need to look at the revenue in the form of building aid, make sure that is flat as well, so that we don't see spikes in revenue or dips in revenue and have that affect our taxpayers. And then all of that plays into the very complicated tax cap formula where we have to look at our capital exclusion. So looking at all of that ahead, we do plan for that ahead as we're looking at the tax cap, how we're planning those levies each year, and to maintain our revenue and revenue to maintain our programming. So I'll pass it over to Greg to explain what happens after get approval.
So after we receive approval, we go right to work developing the actual design drawings for the work that we've identified. So the design and construction documents would get completed by the fall of this year. Then that goes up to New York State. They are the permitting agency, so they issue the building permit. It's going to take 4 or 5 months to get through SED. But as soon as we do, early in 2022, we would look to put the project out to bid, and then commence construction as soon as we could in the spring and summer of 2022, to be complete by the fall. The nice thing about this project is we do have a lot of work over at the bus garage. So that would not be impacted by student occupied spaces. And, you know, the pavilion is isolated from the building. So we're not as limited to working during only the summer months as we typically would be.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. I also wanted to talk about how we got to this point and what we have going forward. So we've worked with the facilities committee that Rita has mentioned. We've looked at the building condition survey, confirmed the needs, areas needing improvement for safety. And we do want to focus that this project is mostly about safety. And then we've worked on narrowing down the scope and plans in this past spring from January to March. So when we first brought it to the board, or when we adopted the proposition for the project. Today we're doing the public forums, and thank you all for being here. On May 6th, we're doing our budget hearing and our capital project presentation again. And the capital project and budget vote will be May 18th at the high school gym. We hope to see you all there. And this is the proposition that will be on the ballot. It will be in our newsletters, has been in all of our legal notices. So we will post this as well. But now we're at questions. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and I can unmute you.
Any comments about the project? Our pavilion?
Perfect.
Bus garage, okay. You know, I have to just do a plug for our mechanics. And when we talk about that lift, when I saw them, you know, it is about safety, and it's about two mechanics that have about 100% scoring. Each DOT comes and inspects each of our buses twice a year, and they just do an amazing job. 98.72 pass rate last year. That's very similar to the year before. It's important that they have a safe environment at the bus garage to work with. Tom Jones, I love your name. This seems pretty reasonable to all of us. Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This seems all necessary and reasonable. I would love to see the pavilion back up. The bathrooms would be convenient too. Yes, personally, I'm very excited about the bathrooms in the pavilion. We've had, you know, homecoming, we have big events down there, and we've either had to send people up to the elementary school or to the porta potties. And I think that that's a lot of cleaner, safer PE classes, just being out, having the children to be able to go in the pavilion. It would be a great addition to our district. All right, so I see Jacqueline's recording, which I'm very happy about. We'll put the recording up on the website. If you have any questions after this presentation, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And I hope I see you at the budget vote in 2 short weeks or so. Have a great night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.